All right, thank you all for showing up. This is our second Zoom meeting for REA. Our first one was very successful. It was with Bob Taylor. We had about 23 people come on in, and it was a really good time. I think this Zoom meeting is going to even be a lot better. We're going to have more time at the end for Q&As, so make sure you have a lot of questions to ask these two. So today we have the Center for Real Estate with Bob Osbrink and Linsey Carbone. Yes. And today they're going to talk about multiple topics. First, we're going to do an introduction of themselves. Then we're going to get into the center's internship placement program. We're going to do Argus training, how students can get involved with professional organizations such as CCIM, SIOR, other real estate organizations like that, the center's plan for the future, and they'll also touch on a little bit of COVID-19 situation in real estate. So those are the topics for today. And now let us just get into the introductions. So Bob and Linsey, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and about the center?
Thanks, James. Lindsay and I, just so we'll set it up here, we're going to bounce back and forth on presenting this. So we want it to be a dialogue. We will have Q&As, and take the questions at the end, but we typically kind of double team all of this. I'm the director for the Center for Real Estate. As some of you know, we've a lot of familiar names and faces so far. Lindsay's assistant director, and we're partners on putting this thing together, along with some super active board members, Bob Taylor being one of them, Scott Kohler, Pat Donahue, Ernie Schroeder. We've got a very active board, which is exciting. Let me read something to start with here that I wrote. It's a narrative that it's going to be published in a couple different places, but it gives you a little overview of what we're thinking, what our plans are. And it starts off like this. In this unprecedented time in our history, we at the California State University's Fullerton Center for Real Estate, we stand committed to support our students in their preparation for a career in real estate. Our outreach has been inclusive of many of the organizations that are part of the foundation of our industry, which James was just mentioning. We continue our building of an intern program which assists students find their beginning roles and entry levels into the business. With a list of 6,000 firms and a broad reach into opportunities, we have now placed, I put 15, but I find out we're at 27. So I was shorted this a little bit, into positions and have over 40 in our interview process. The center works closely with the REA, Real Estate Association, a club that has grown its membership from 12 to over 60 members. This cornerstone program moves our goal of assisting students along at an amazing pace. We are proud to include many successful leaders in our industry on our board of advisors. Industry groups such as CCIM, IREM, BOMA, ICSC, PWR, NAIOP have joined with us with advice and support of our initiatives. The curriculum at Cal State Fullerton is being expanded with a goal of creating a minor in real estate under a finance major. This approach is being recognized by the California Department of Real Estate and will allow students to sit for a broker's license and possibly bypass the 2 years experience hurdle. That's a big one. Programs like Argus training, attendance at special events such as ICSC Recon in Las Vegas, on hold currently. The annual real estate forum and events held by the above industry organizations will give students a unique hands-on view of the industry. This momentum is moving forward with a strong belief in our industry, our university, and I repeated our industry. We're going to have to edit that, Lindsay, now that I reread it. But that gives you kind of a 30,000-foot view of what we're doing. I'll give you briefly, I think most of the people, the names I'm seeing, you've got my background. I've been in real estate for a long time, primarily housed in Orange County. I learned how to broker in parts of Santa Ana and around all over the county, really some North County deals. Did that, helped build a company back in the late 70s and early 80s, which was sold to Cushman & Wakefield. I was there for probably about 10 years total. I ran Southern California, parts of Southern California for Cushman & Wakefield, worked for the Irvine Company for Mr. Bren for a few years when Irvine Spectrum became a project. I've had my own Osbrink group active in consulting pretty much the whole time, in and out, and I've done that. not a Cal State Fullerton graduate, USC graduate, played some basketball back in the day, as they like to say, and went into the real estate business when I was working in a computer company, and some guy pulled up in a Ferrari, and I saw the Ferrari, and I asked the general manager, I said, "What's that guy do?" And he said, "He's in commercial real estate." So I got into my '69 Volkswagen bus and went home and started thinking about how do I get in commercial real estate. That's how I got started. Went from the Irvine company to doing consulting work for Santa Margarita company, helping the land development for Foothill Ranch, Rancho Mission Viejo in general, Pacific Park. Did that for a few years. Then went back into brokerage with Grubb and Ellis. Ended up being there 20 years. Started as a sales manager in Newport office, ended up as the co-CEO for the country probably 15 years later, and did that for a few years. Left there in '08 when everything was falling apart and a ill-advised merger took place, and then went back to doing Osbrink Group. I got involved with Fullerton. I was on the board of advisors for Lusk Center for Real Estate up at USC, and we put the MRED program, the Masters in Real Estate Development, together when I was on that advisory board. I wasn't going up to LA as much, and Bob Taylor, Pat Donahue, Ernie Schroeder, Mike Hefner, they were all good friends of mine. And so I got on the board here at the Ray Louie, which was Real Estate Land Use Institute originally. We sat in the board meetings for several years, and then one of the reasons I get involved in anything is to help other people, whether it's coaching the grandsons or the sons or getting involved with this and helping students. That's kind of my purpose. I'm a coach by nature, and that's what I do. We realized that the center was it was helping certain people in their academic stature in the community, but not helping the students as much as we would like. So we had a little powwow and got together, and I said, I'll jump into this role because I could really see the potential. And part of it was working together to try and bring the REA in together with the center. We renamed it from the Ray Louie to Center for Real Estate, which I think was a big change because Real Estate Land Use Institute didn't mean anything to me. It didn't resonate. Center for Real Estate is pretty accepted no matter where we go. People understand what we're trying to do. And by the way, we're trying to build relationships in both commercial real estate as well as residential real estate. So it's really a broad area we're looking into. So we've been doing that for a couple of years now. Linsey came on board to help. I've been around a while, so there's a lot of stories, but I'll turn it over to Linsey to talk a little bit about her background, and then we'll jump into the intern program, because I think that's one of the key facets of what we want to talk about today.
I think every real estate person always has such an interesting background because real estate attracts people who are looking for an opportunity to make a difference. And I think each of you are going to have such amazing stories to tell a couple years down the road. But I got my start because both my parents are brokers, and real estate can become a little bit of an obsession. And that was definitely the case for my family. So I think I did my first real estate deal at 2 months old. And it took off from there. So, but we did real estate a little bit differently. My parents did commercial and residential development. They did sales, they did property management. And then they had this bleeding heart for businesses where they could see value. And so we also ended up running the businesses that they would accidentally buy because they came with the property. So we did bathing suit manufacturing. We ran a fruit stand. We had a restaurant. We had a bed and breakfast. And so I got this wonderful education in real estate just through that. And then they made our college funds. They bought each child a house, and then we had to maintain this house. And that was supposed to be our college fund. So we did a lot of, elbow grease and sweat trying to get ourselves to college, but it paid off. And come to find out, my brother's house that was supposed to be his college fund was actually, he and my dad, right, would work on this house. Bob Taylor bought it years and years before with his dad in Oroville. And so it has gone down through so I feel like I was fated to have this job. But almost everyone I knew growing up was in real estate. My best friend's dad was a city manager. It was kind of a life. And so when I look at some of the resumes that come in from students, when I'm working with students, some of you have that great exposure and some of you are learning it from the beginning. And I think one of the great things the center offers is kind of this ability to give you a fluency in it and a leg up, which is extraordinary. But I became officially a real estate agent in 2005. I got my license and then left immediately. I got a full ride to grad school out on the East Coast and became a landlord. So just a different part of real estate. But after grad school, I developed a specialty in nonprofits, in education, and in this thing called entrepreneurship, which is where you do a startup inside a larger company. So something that didn't exist before, but is being built under the auspices of a larger company. And I met Bob Taylor. At that time, I was the CMO of Vanguard University. And my Aunt Linda had worked for Bob at RIM International. And so Bob said, you've got to come to dinner. I want to meet you. I want to introduce you to this other guy named Bob. So we had dinner, and come to find out, they had this thing called Ray Louie going. And we thought maybe my expertise in higher ed could help. Oh, there he is. Speak of the devil. I see Bob Taylor joining.
Yeah, change the tone, Lindsay. He's on the call.
Shoot, man. Okay. So much for the candid background. No. So we had a great time. They roped me into volunteering, and from volunteering to working, and then next thing you know, I'm the assistant director. It just kept growing. And it's been that way since the beginning. Every time we meet, it seems like something new and exciting is happening. And there's just a ton of momentum behind this thing. So for every student who is on this call, I think you're very lucky to be plugged in to this group at this time, because the community has such a desire to kind of meet you where you are and pull you into a thriving career. And that isn't the case. I've been working in student internships. This is really frightening for me. I don't feel old enough to say this, but since 1996, I've been working on internship placements. And you never have this kind of hunger from the companies that are going to be hosting the students as we're seeing right now. So in terms of a leg up, in terms of this being the right moment, I'm a little bit envious of every student involved in the center and in the real estate association right now. So you guys are in really great place. I don't think I missed anything. I think that brings us up to today. Bob, you want to take it from there?
Well, welcome Bob Taylor to our call. I know Bob was he was the overbearing part of this last time, so we'll let him come in whenever is possible. Bob's been very helpful, and when we talk about the intern program, we'll let him throw a couple ideas out. You know, one of the questions that we can wait till the end, but it's kind of like makes sense on what Lindsay just said for all of you. Bob Taylor, myself, Lindsay, we've all sat where you have sat, sitting there wondering, okay, what's going to happen next to us? You know, okay, yeah, I had my courses, I got through all that. I'm going to graduate this year. Maybe the ceremony isn't the same, but nevertheless, you're going to move through your college career, and you're talking real estate. Well, wait a minute, all the news is terrible. I will make this statement. We've got a ton of companies want to talk to interns. We've already placed, as we said, I think 27 with Bob's help, Lindsay, the whole team, which is a phenomenal number given that we hadn't placed any with a year ago. So we've caught on. Fortunately, we've got a lot of really good relationships after all the years in the business, so we're able to make phone calls on your behalf and pretty much get people's attention. But I will tell you right now, with all the new things that are going to come out, which we can't identify exactly, but anybody that's thinking in terms of expanding their business and want to bring on an intern, that's the kind of person that's the thoughtful person you want to be with. So I'm excited about the people that are reaching out to us, because they're not seeing this as oh my God, the world's coming to an end for us. They're looking at it as an opportunity to do their business differently, and they plan on succeeding. So I like the pipeline of people that are reaching out to us, not only students that want to get involved, but the companies that are reaching out to us and saying, oh, absolutely, we'd like to have people. And that's the tenor of things, everyone. So what you're reading in the papers and what you're hearing on the news and every day, that's all fine, and listen to everything you possibly can. But I'm telling you, real time, the people that we talk to, the plans right now are to expand real estate, maybe differently, but the land is not going away. The buildings will not go away. They may not be occupied the same way, but a lot of these things are going to stay the same. So I don't know, Bob or Lindsay, if you have anything to add to that, but I want to start off on a positive note, because you can pretty much get down in something like this. But the majority of the people that I've seen in my career that have done extremely well got in at a time like this, the next year or so where we're going. And it was terrible. But guess what? When things get better and you've worked through that difficult time, I mean, it's a piece of cake. It really is. It works out like that.
Yeah.
I've been through a few downturns. So,
Yeah. Well,
unmute yourself there, Robert. I see your lips moving. You got to hit unmute, Robert, and maybe hit the hearing one too. There you go.
Am I okay?
Now you got
All
it.
right.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, good. Yeah, just want to explain, like, and follow up with what Bob Osbrink said, that there's great opportunity in, especially, commercial real estate going forward. A lot of us started back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and a lot of folks are retiring now, and there's the big need for young people to come up and be the next executives and run this industry in the future. One of the things that we like to do is, well, first of all, we've databased about 7,000 companies in Orange County, and we're continuing to database companies and contacts that touch real estate. What I'd like to do is to review with you as a student individually. We usually spend about a couple hours discussing your background and what your interests are, and then try to come up with a list of industries that you think that you'd be interested in, whether it be brokerage or property management or so forth. It could be banking, it could be insurance that has to do with real estate, it has to do with the lending industry. And then we actually, prepare a letter. We automatically, go through your resume, fine tune it. Linsey, did you go through this before?
No.
I'm repeating. Okay.
it's on the agenda.
Okay, we take a look at your resume and fine tune it for you, and then we have a third-party letter that goes out from Bob Osbrink, as if Bob's known you for 20 years, even though you're maybe 19. And between Osbrink and I, we probably know most of the people, or a good number of the people in the industry here in Orange County, and we've been very successful in placing our students. And then the other thing we like to do is, while you are a student, we like to introduce you to the organizations that support the real estate industry, like BOMA, Building Owner Managers Association, IREM, Institute of Real Estate Management. We're working with the counselors of real estate right now, SIOR, and so forth, all the major associations. And where you actually are a member of that association, and attend their events and lunches and so forth, and build relationships. And that's really the key. So by the time you graduate, you will already know many executives in the real estate industry.
Linsey, can you go over for everyone that is new to the internship program how they can get this process going? What are the first steps for them to do?
Yes, 100%. So there's two different ways that are in play right now. The traditional way is you just email the center. You email either me or Bob Osbrink or Bob Taylor and say, hey, I'm looking for an internship. And we connect you with someone who will talk to you about what that is. What kind of real estate? What are you thinking? What are your passions? And kind of match you up. And then from there, if you don't have a resume, you write a resume. Usually those come to me, and then I edit them. That's where you see a graduate degree in English and a graduate degree in finance kind of at war with each other. James is nodding. I've red penned his. It's all done lovingly, and it makes the resume that much better after we get through that process, right? So it's already a standout resume. And then you write a cover letter, and we help you with that. And that cover letter also is, designed to make you stand ahead above anyone else. And on top of that, then goes Director Osbrink's letter introducing you to associates that he's worked with. So they take his word, as being important, as vouching for you. And then you go forward into these internships. And generally people are choosing between options, which has been really fun. I've never worked for an internship program that has such a high placement rate before. And I think part of that is it's not just sending out a haphazard resume. It's not sending out a haphazard letter. The students like James, who have gone all the way through the internship program, they had to stick with it. They had to put in a lot of effort. It's not just slipshod. But what that means is, it means you're getting in an internship at a company that's reputable, that can make your career as you go forward, with somebody who expects excellence and therefore does excellently in their field, right? So you're getting mentored by the best, but you have to put in that effort. There's a couple names that I can see attending, and you're kind of in process on this, right? So this is my encouragement to you to stick with it, because the effort you put in now will pay out in spades later, but you've got to stick with it. We lose a certain amount who just say, that's it, I'm not writing this cover letter, or I'm not doing this round of revisions. But if you do it, I think you will be making thousands upon thousands more in 5 to 10 years than if you just take the easy route. So that's my encouragement there. I know that the REA also sent out a survey. I've been going through that. You guys were amazing, everyone who filled it out. And there's a lot of resumes there. So I am going through all of those resumes and vetting them. I'm also doing write-ups on those students, because we're going to put them out in a digital magazine that goes to local companies, and try and match you that way. So that's kind of a fast track approach. It's a first time for the Center for Real Estate trying that. So we'll see how it works. Anyone who doesn't get an internship through that, we'll just probably stick you right in and start sending out packets directly to companies. But the idea was to see, we have so many companies asking, the idea was to see if we could quickly place you. So both of those are in process. And the idea too is that real estate is not all the same. You find very different personalities in property management than you see in commercial brokerage, than you see even in industrial or residential, and different qualities of life, different patterns of life. And so having Bob Osbrink, Bob Taylor, and our other board volunteers to talk to about, what does it mean if I decide to become a real estate appraiser? What does it mean if I decide to work at a title company? They can help kind of find something that's rewarding. So instead of spending the first 5 years out of college bouncing from one thing to another, you get the added advantage of launching into something that's a great fit for who you are and what you want your life to be.
How many different categories did we end up with, Linsey, Bob? Remember, we got 7,000 people in there, but different categories. It was a huge number.
We have 32.
Yeah, 32 different categories under the heading of real estate. And if you've been in it the way we have, right at the street level, and really transacted either as an investor or a broker or managing companies, that's a staggering amount. It covers almost every breadth that you can think of, but it all has these ties to real estate. And I will tell you, part of the reason that we built this process, everyone, is that sitting there receiving resumes, they're constantly coming into different offices, whether it's property management like Bob did, or brokerage like I did, or both, which I did at one time. But all those things, when you see a resume that has been well crafted, and then you team that up with the letter from some sort of authority figure that's got some credibility with a university, then you definitely go to the top of the stack very quickly. And so we know how to get people's attention, and that's one of the reasons we're excited. And I think we're getting the traction, Linsey. I think that's one of the reasons, is the process itself is showing the people that, hey, we care about this. And so join in. To be honest, we've had a couple people that wanted to get involved, and they didn't really pass muster with Bob or myself, and our reputations, they're pretty lengthy, and they're also halfway decent. So you get, like you said, you got to earn the right to be able to be put in front of these folks. So it works on both sides. And I like that a lot. That's a little bit old school, but I believe no matter if you have Zoom meetings or whatever, it's still, those kind of relationships are going to carry the day.
Yeah, it's not a rubber stamp. And I think that does make it very different from, like, if you walk into the Career Center, they don't have a specialty in real estate, but they're also going to help no matter what. And real estate is based on relationships. And so the first training wheels for that are working within the center to kind of earn that internship placement. So I think it's a very exhilarating program to be a part of, because I get to see all of these students launch and start careers. And now I'm following everybody on LinkedIn, and I'm thinking, shoot, I want that job. How did I launch you into that job? I want it.
Right.
But that's the best thing that, you could ever have happen coming out of this. The other half of the internship program is trying to build your resumes while you're in school.
Right. That's
And
huge.
that ties in with what Bob Taylor was saying about the associations. My background largely is as much in marketing as in real estate. And I will never forget the story of the student who of her own initiative went to the Orange County Marketing Association meeting. She didn't know anybody, and she said hello. And they were so shocked to see a student that they invited her to join a committee, which she did. And they couldn't believe she showed up. So then they gave her responsibilities. By the end of a year, she had graduated and she was offered a place. I couldn't even get a job in this agency. It was the hardest, most exclusive agency to get a job in. And she got it. But she got it because on that committee she served in was the CEO of that agency who saw her initiative and pluck. And this is what those organizations are for anyone who's trying to get a job in real estate. All of a sudden, you can be shoulder to shoulder with a mid or senior level executive, showing them that you have attention to detail, that you have a work ethic, that you will show up when you say you will, which oddly is a huge part of succeeding in life, right? And so each of these, what we have for most of the major real estate organizations, we have a board member champion, someone who is well connected in that organization and is willing to take a student under their wing. And the organization itself is willing to give a role to that student, to put you somewhere on a committee, on a board, on a volunteer something. And that gives you exposure. So if anyone is interested in doing that, I know a couple of the organizations already have their student ambassador, but there are definitely more, and they are always asking. So reach out to Bob or me and let us know, because that you can put that on your resume, which will make you stand out head and shoulders above any other graduate. But that's a big thing in terms of moving forward. Another big thing in terms of how to actually take your time now in school and leverage it so that you come out so much better when you graduate is the Argus financial training. Are we familiar with that, or is that like jargon?
I don't think a lot of people know about that. So if you can explain, that'd be really great.
All right.
Let me back up before no, just
Yes.
for a second. No, you can explain the mechanics of it, but let me talk about the real goal of the step back for a second and give you all. I'm sure some of you recognize so many names. I'm sure many of you have heard this. The real goal is to get a certification in real estate in the finance group, then have a minor in real estate, then have a major in real estate. And I would love to see in a few years to have a master's degree in real estate. The underlying goal, which I read this at the first part of the meeting, is that we want any graduate from Cal State Fullerton to be the most qualified real estate person to step into the industry of any university, not just in Orange County, but in the country. And I think we can do that because we got a very grassroots approach to it. It's not UCI, they'll work with master's degrees, and they're trying to place people that have been in the industry. They're really big on name recognition in the industry, which is fine, but that time is passing where people that actually can perform the task get the job instead of just people that know other people. It helps to know people for sure, but you got to earn your way, as Linsey was saying. And then Chapman, same kind of thing. Their program, they've tried to get a program off the ground, but I've actually had several calls from them asking if we can help out. So we may end up in some sort of working together with Chapman, because it's not happening over there. But the goal is to be able to launch all of you into these programs and get into the industry with a running start that's immediately you're ahead of things. The Argus training is kind of the Bible of how to analyze a property in our industry. We're teamed up with UCI on putting it together. I encourage anyone that can to get involved with it, because once again, on your resume, you're going to separate yourself right away by walking in with even discussions with some of the groups that Bob mentioned, CCIM, NAIOP, all these different industry groups. We're going to give you some leverage into that. And Argus training is one that will definitely put you ahead, particularly if you're interested in selling any type of commercial property. Yeah. So those were held on campus. We had everything set up to have it in Mahalo, and I did it a couple of years in Mahalo. Steve Haddad helped us a lot on that to get it rolling initially. And Linsey, tell them where we're at right now on that.
Well, we're where everyone else is. We're trying to
Yeah.
schedule an online version of the exam. So the really exciting thing about it is it's actually a very pricey exam to take. It's a very prestigious certification to have. Um, and there is an endowment at Cal State Fullerton, which I think is fairly unique among universities. So when you take it, you pay a $100 course fee and a $400 certification fee. And for students who pass the certification exam at the end of the 2-day training, which I think right now we're looking at May 23rd and 24th, so it'd be right between the end of spring term and summer term. So hopefully when your brains are the best for passing everything. If you pass, you get $400 refunded to you from the endowment at Cal State Fullerton. So basically, you get Argus certification, not quite for free, but pretty close, and that that should come back, pay you tenfold at least. One of the recent alums I was talking to, Nick DeLuna, he does property management, and he said he didn't know what kind of real estate he wanted to get into at the time, but he knew he wanted to do real estate. And so he did the Argus training and he passed the exam. And he doesn't use Argus in his job, but he said they called him in for the interview because he had Argus training on his resume. And that told them that he was serious about real estate. They knew he was a different kind of candidate.
Yeah, you gotta just believe us. Every one of these steps we're taking, the reason behind it is to have you better prepared to step through that door for the interview and beat somebody else.
Yeah.
We're a little competitive with our program.
I know. Forget just trouncing UCI. Let's take out USC, UCLA, Stanford.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Hey,
Easy.
you're wearing blue today,
Yeah, I know.
Hear what color you bleed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I got my Titan hat is over there. Yeah, go ahead. The dates.
Do we have a
again?
date set up for the Argus training?
So right now we're looking at May 23rd through 24th. I chatted my email to everyone. If you are interested in that, go ahead and just shoot me an email. I would like to take it. I mean, I think it's a phenomenal opportunity. And if you're interested and you feel like you don't have the funding, like you can't even front yourself the $400, don't hesitate to let us know. We can possibly find someone to try and help you on this end. So we don't want you to be held back. So just let us know.
All right, so we talked about the internship program, we talked about Argus. Do we want to talk a little bit more about the professional organizations, like how that exactly works? I know we touched on it, but like what would the students be doing if they were an ambassador?
I can try to touch on that a little bit.
I'll start it a little bit here. Part of it is getting an awareness of how the whole industry operates. And the people that touch the most different types of people are these organizations. While they may be like NAIOP may be focused on a little bit on brokerage, it's also industrial and office. It's the National Association of Industrial and Office Parks. So you have industrial properties, you have developers, you have brokers, you have property managers, all wanting to join this. Some financial institutions get involved. BOMA's primarily in the property management space, but they touch a lot of other things. You've got these different groups allow you to go in and really see at a high level the way the industry operates, and to get that exposure early when you're not trying to grind out deals. It's a great, to me, again, we're trying to build a real strategic way of you being able to say, oh, wait, okay, I get this. Because it took me years to figure out some of these groups and who was what and why they were important. But that's why we're exposing you to them. So there's a lot of ways to get exposed, by the way. ICSC, we were set up. We had a booth last year. We got a ton of people coming by our booth, real interested in what, I think we had the most attendance of almost any university at last year's in Las Vegas.
Can you explain what ICSC is to those that don't know?
International Council of Shopping Centers. Now, that's going to be real interesting to see what happens with that group. But the leadership in that group is Pat Donahue, is the president of the foundation, and he's one of our key board members, Cal State graduate, good friend of all of ours. That is about 30 to 40,000 people going in to talk about real estate transactions, retail users, everything from Subway to large restaurant chains to all types of retail uses. Tremendous exposure. James, I think we had 12 people there last year.
I think
Students.
even more, wasn't
Might
it?
have been more, yeah. And yeah, it might have been more than that. But we ended up with a really nice showing. We were all set with a booth and everything ready to go. And obviously it's going to be rescheduled. So we will keep that as one of our activities. But the exposure walking around this floor at the convention center at Las Vegas with all these booths and all these people talking to each other, you automatically get a real feel for what the industry is like, the vibration of the industry, the way the industry moves, the type of people that are in the industry. And all those things are very subtle ways of just becoming a real estate person in the way you're exposed. Coming out cold is hard, and it's the way Bob and I did, but you get involved. I mean, you just get involved with things, and you end up on these boards some way. So that, and there's a whole list of them, and if you go on the website, you'll see most of them are board members, which that keeps them real interactive. Majority of our board, I think we're up to about 18 board members now. We've just put about 4 or 5 on, and each one of them are strategically on the board to help the students. There's no other reason. Well, there is another reason. It's fundraising, but the fundraising helps us grow the program. The fundraising helps you all with what we're trying to do for you. So everything's being done with a thought behind it as far as helping the students. That was, and Bob can attest to this, that one meeting we stepped out of, and we all 4 of us got together and said, we got to change this dynamic. We got to help the kids, students. And so that's what's taken place over the last couple of years.
Yeah. The other thing I would add about the organizations is real estate is a relational business. If you do a deal and you work with an appraiser and it went well, you're going to want that appraiser again. If you use a banker and he's there for you, you're going to want that banker again. So when you go to these meetings and you're trying to break into the industry,
right?
all the guys who know each other, all the women who know each other, they're already talking. They've come to say, oh, I know so-and-so is going to be here. I want to talk to her about helping me out on this. It's hard to break into that, especially once you've already started your career. I remember being a new agent and walking into the MLA meetings, Multiple Listing Association, and just feeling like, not only do I not want to talk to anybody, but I don't even know what I would talk to them about. And I know half the real estate community here, but this is awkward for me to be trying to build business. If you walk in as a student, everybody wants to talk to you. They have a heart for you and they want to give you a leg up. So then when you do walk into that organization as a member after graduating, it's not awkward. You have friends, you know people, you belong. And that, in terms of building a career, especially when you've got to be out there hustling and building your own business and your own portfolio, huge difference. Think about the people on your left and your right who are new entrants into the industry, who didn't do the work when they were in college, who slept in till 10. Big, big, big difference. They're going to have to work twice as hard now to catch you. So when you talk about what the students are doing, it's almost showing up as 9/10 of it. Being there, showing face, be present. And the more you do it, the more payout you will get on the other side.
The interview, when you go into an interview with all these things in your background, even just, you made the comment, Lindsay, you sit there, and James knows because he's been through that. But as somebody on the hiring side for all the years I was, if someone sat there with me and said, I have a business degree from wherever, and I kind of think real estate would be something I'd be interested in, that's one conversation. But if they sit there and say, I've passed Argus, I'm looking to go through CCIM, I'm thinking about taking my broker's license because I completed the coursework at Fullerton, I can sit down for a broker's license without 2 years of experience, and I want to do that because I'm committed to the industry. And I've been to the ICSC. I've seen that's an amazing event. And I'm sitting there listening to this, and you're sitting there as a new graduate. Unless you're saying something really wrong on the other side, you got a really good chance of getting brought on board, because it is different than everybody else. It separates it. And you'll get the dialogue of real estate by going to these events and being exposed to these groups. And you can trust Bob and I, Lindsay, there's a dialogue to the industry. There's a dialogue to all industries. If you're a tech person, you need to have the tech dialogue to get your foot in the door of a tech company. You just have to. Real estate's the same way, no different.
Yep. You'll start being fluent.
So Bob, you actually mentioned something I wanted to talk about. You talked briefly through that last sentence or two about broker's license, completing at Cal State Fullerton. Can you explain like what that is?
Okay, the Department of Real Estate, in order to, the initial test is a sales license. So you sit for a sales license. You have to take coursework through a real estate company, education company. You go through the coursework, you sit for the exam, primarily geared to residential, but it applies to commercial and everything, the whole shooting match, which I still can't understand why we haven't undone that. But so you sit for the sales license. Now the advanced is a broker's license, which means you can guide a deal, you can transact, you can collect the commission to yourself. Salesperson has to be under a broker's license in order to collect a fee. A broker can collect a fee on their own. The rules are that you have to go through certain coursework and then apply to the Department of Real Estate and have 2 years of active experience in an intern program or working as a runner or something in the industry. Could be property management. You got to be in the industry and display that. Department of Real Estate has set up a system with Cal State Fullerton, with our groups, that if you pass the coursework and get through all the courses, you can immediately sit for the broker's exam. And that's a huge leg up for against everybody else. It's just another one of these building blocks to get past that. And Steve Haddadin, who was president a couple years ago of the REA, he's the one who really pushed on that with the Department of Real Estate. And so we've got that. That's unique. I don't know of any other school in the state that's got that. So yeah, that's what that. And again, that's a building block for you.
Well, and I think that ties in. I'm seeing a question. Some of us are looking into real estate licensing and need to know how it works to have connections with 3 associations, local, city, and state. What does that look like, and how could we learn kind of more about it? Is there someone that could talk to us, or how do we get access to MLS? I think that's kind of how do you get your foot in the door? What's the first step in this process? I want to be a broker eventually, or right now I'm sitting for the real estate exam. How does that all fit in to what's going on?
Part of the question I understand, part I'm not sure I understand. The broker's license, you said something, the question had something to do with some different parts of the industry. Repeat it, because I'm not sure Bob, did you catch that?
Well, I think you have to have a salesman's license to be a member of, be a realtor, and then Correct. Being a realtor, now you're authorized to have, privilege of getting access to the MLS, local listing service, to see what properties are available for right. sale or lease, and to monitor the industry and to go to their meetings and so forth. So it's really accessibility to information that's going to help you, whether in commercial or residential real estate.
One of the groups that we've formed a relationship with, which has unfortunately been slowed down because of the whole virus thing, is a PWR. And PWR is a group in Anaheim, right across from the stadium. I think they've got about, I want to say 11,000 members in Southern California. They're all residential. They were formed to help answer that type of question. So we would be able, for whomever asked it, to say, okay, go for your sales license. At the same time, let us introduce you to PWR. Maybe they need an intern. You will learn everything about residential and how to get into it at a fast track right away. So we're trying to keep those doors open in a little different way. So you go in with a warm call, not a cold call. I don't know if that answered the question.
So the follow-up to that question is, someone was under the impression that there were 3 associations they needed to pay membership to get access to the MLS. That was not the case when I got my license.
I don't know who's telling you that. I think that's one of those, if you buy this car, instead of that car, we'll give you a sunroof. I think that one. I'd have to know a little bit more about that. That doesn't make sense to me. Joining organizations qualifies you to. No, I don't.
I think you have to be a realtor and belong to the National Association of Realtors.
And yeah, and once you are a realtor, I believe you automatically belong at city. county
Yes.
and state levels.
Yep. Yep. Well, okay. That was the part of the question I didn't understand. Once you're a realtor, once you're licensed for the state of California. It's not a so provincial that it's per city or something like that. You're licensed for the state of California. Now, the firm you may go work for may have geographic restrictions on where you can work and where you can plant your flag, but typically speaking, from a licensing standpoint, there's no difference. If I've got my broker's license, I can transact anywhere in the state of California. So
look out, California.
well, we have. So
I think you mentioned PWR, Pacific West Realtors. They have mainly just the Orange County and part of Los Angeles, I believe. But then San Francisco has their own organization, association of realtors for, say, San Francisco or San Diego.
right.
So if you're doing business in San Francisco, then you want to belong to that local real estate organization, multiple listing. But if you're just doing business in Orange County or Riverside County, San Bernardino, you have you belong to the National Association of Realtors, and then you also pay a membership for the local board, of which gives you authorization to use their MLS.
Right. Yeah. Each city, each area is going to have the same sort of companies interacting. So, real estate's pretty provincial. So your geography is going to matter. It's not as transferable as some other things. If you're doing, especially brokerage, property management is a little more transferable. Brokerage tends to be very, very geographically centered. So when you start in an area, it's a little bit difficult unless you're just doing investment sales to move your practice. But that's a side story too.
Yeah, you get plugged in where you're planted.
In commercial, it tends to work that way, and I believe it does in residential too, because you got your farm, you build your farm, you have your relationships, all the movements, all the systems of it. And once you spend all that time learning it, not that you can't learn it again, but it's rare that people jump markets like that. Do you have any other? Should we just start opening it up for questions? Because I think we've gone through some of the things we wanted to touch on. Wouldn't you say, Linsey?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Selena had a great question, and that was how the coronavirus is impacting the ability to even have an internship. Because, we're all imagining an internship as you walk into a physical office and try to avoid getting everyone coffee. She's asking, is it impacting when we can start, or is it impacting what the internship would be like? What are you hearing word on the street?
We just sent an email out, I think this morning, or these two groups want six interns.
Yeah.
And the intern program is going to be, we're in a pretty digital age. So the intern program is going to be sorting out properties, going in and analyzing where the ownerships are, really coming back with some ideas of where redevelopment opportunities may lie. Because I know what their plan is, to go in and sit down and look at retail centers, see the really dive into the tenancy, the tenants in the centers, to do some background checking on the tenants to see how financially viable they are, and then come back to the people that are running the companies, because we're in a position of a huge change, particularly in retail. Ownerships are going to change. The way the buildings are used is going to change. There will be a change, but somebody will figure out how to get there. That's why the people asking in this market, like I said before, for interns, they're going to utilize them kind of like this. Instead of sitting in a conference room, we're sitting like this. My suspicion is we're going to get back to a more standard way of doing business here sooner than later. But sooner might mean 6 months. But in the meantime, I can tell you right now, I've talked to 4 or 5 different brokerages in the last 3 days, and I'm doing some consulting work for. There's no doubt the revenues are down. There's no doubt some of the stock values in the public companies are down. They're letting some people go. It all sounds very bad. But on the other hand, you got a lot of people making money, and the people that are making money and figuring out how the next making money is going to happen, they're the ones who want the interns right now. So it's there's definitely an opportunity.
Yeah. It actually makes it easier to decide where to invest your time right out of college or right now. And that's your greatest asset anyway.
And when we put you in touch with these people, we like to stay involved. So if there's no problem sending an email or picking up the phone and saying, hey, either one of the Bobs or Linsey, I've heard about this one that I maybe like to talk to. What do you think about it? Because as Bob said, I mean, there may be a few we don't know, but we're within one phone call of knowing the right person. So typically in Orange County, particularly LA, Orange County, a little bit of San Diego and Inland Empire too, but kind of our stomping the grounds.
Your infamy extends.
Yeah, at a minimum.
Yeah.
What other questions can we talk about?
Well, George had a good one, and I don't actually know exactly how to answer it, but I'm going to try. He said, when can we expect to see a minor in real estate? So I think we should all just put money on a date and time and see who wins the bet. George, there's a couple of things I can tell you about going for a new academic program that are involved. One is the internal bureaucracy at Cal State Fullerton. So we're pushing into that now, and we've got to get everything set up for that minor. And then after that, you have to go in front of, it would probably be the Golden State Association of Colleges, or WASC, the accrediting body that gives Cal State Fullerton its accreditation. And you have to petition to add the academic program. So there has to be a whole report written, it has to meet certain criteria. And the backlog on that is usually at least a year. So if you're a graduating senior, it's probably not going to be in time to help you. But if you're coming in as a freshman, there's hope. So somewhere in that timeline, not in the next year, but hopefully in academic time soon. They don't move quite as fast as private industry. It's a little different.
My suspicion is that it could be faster than the normal, because there's at least 3 people on this call that don't like to wait. So it could happen, but that's a realistic view of it. I think there's going to be some change in leadership in some of the departments in the Halo that could help us push things a little faster than we've seen so far, and we're excited about that. So yeah, we'll see. But I think the year is a good solid number to put out. Anything faster than that would be incredibly unlikely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of these courses. The other thing is, I'm not even sure today, and I don't know, Linsey, if you've heard where our enrollments are sitting with some of our classes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like law was falling. I encourage you, take the law class. We need enrollment, because that also helps everybody, because then that goes to the Department of Real Estate, and that's one of the classes they want people to have to sit for the broker's license. So yeah. It's not that we want it, it's that it's good for all of you. So
well, plus you save a ton of money later. If you have to pay a lawyer $500 an hour to tell you what you could have learned in real estate law, you're going to really wish you'd sat through that class.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Miguel says, for new real estate investors, what's the best way to raise money for down payments on commercial properties? I can tell you how I bought my first house. Well, Bob.
You're talking commercial, not residential.
Okay, fine.
I mean, friends and family is usually the best initial source historically that you can find. Someone coming in with no portfolio or no past history, asking a lender to back them on a commercial deal right now, good luck with that. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's pretty close to impossible right now. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of liquidity out there. I think you need a business plan of why you're interested in the property. How does that property fit long-term? What's the plan on how you're going to either tenant it, re-tenant it, or keep the tenants? Those are going to be the questions that you have to think about before the financing, because when you go in front of somebody, you got to have a solid business plan of, here's what it's going to cost to buy it. Here's what it's going to cost to renovate it. Here's what it's going to cost to re-tenant it. I've got 3 tenants in great spaces. They can't pay rent, and that's going to happen a lot right now. So I don't know, Bob, if you've got any other idea on that.
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
It takes a partnership, and generally you start off, as I did, with an education and somewhat education and interest in real estate, but I had no money. So in a partnership, if you have two people, if you have both have no experience, you're in trouble, or if both have money, you're kind of in trouble. But you, even as a student who have taken real estate courses, and maybe you have joined as an intern with some of these associations, maybe you're just starting out, but the reality is you're in the top 1% of knowledgeable people in the United States in real estate, even though you're just starting out. And you get the attention of others that have money. And just because you have an interest and you've taken classes in real estate, in some degrees, you're kind of an expert compared to the other people in the society. So I also found out that if you find a good property and it's a whoopee, as I say, it's a good deal, you can always find the money. Generally speaking, in my entire career, I bought property for nothing down and pulled off things that people would say were impossible. But again, it's locating.
If you find one of those deals, call Bob or I, or both of us.
Well, I just bought I'm in escrow right now, a condo for $120,000 with a zero down. Okay. And then, but it's just a matter of people having confidence in you. And most investors that have money, they're not happy with the stock market. They're not happy with 0.5% interest in the bank, but they are interested in real estate, but they have no knowledge. Plus they don't want to do the work. But as a young person starting out, if you do the work of the management, they're willing to put up the money. And if anybody wants to talk to me more specifically and game strategy, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah. The only other thing I would add, and this is a super pragmatic from a student, I sold my car. Someone will always sell you a car later. So I sold my car. That was my down payment. And then I took my student loans and I lived cheaply. And I used the surplus of that to save up, so that then you have money to invest in real estate. Those are two assets that probably most of you have. After I bought the property, I bought a car, right? It's easier to get a car loan than a property loan. So if you're really serious, you can do something like that. You do have assets. You just have to be willing to work them. But
just behind the college on Milton Street, just the other side of Yorba Linda Boulevard, right out of the Army. I had no money, and I bought a fourplex on the GI Bill, which was 1% down, and that was $600, a $60,000 purchase. But then, so I had to come up with $600, but I also had to come up with more closing costs money, which was $1,300. All I didn't even have a job then, but I went ahead and tried to buy the property anyway. So I got a Cal State Fullerton student loan for $1,000 from Bank of America. And then I got my Visa cards just came out. So I borrowed $300 on my Visa, which was my maximum. And that was my down payment. And then I short money on my monthly payment. So even though I already had my bachelor's degree, I declared a new major and went to school 4 nights a week to get my education money. So I can give you many examples like that. So
those are real-time examples too. To buy my first house, I was working full-time but played guitar at night, and any tips and any cash I got playing guitar, which happened to be pretty good in those days, I literally put into a can, and then ended up buying a house because I was renting a little apartment down in Manhattan Beach, and ended up buying a house in Westchester. So there's all kinds. If you really want it bad enough, there's ways to figure it out.
Yes, and for everyone who
hears, not a cookie cutter answer.
Well, and when you hear stories like yours, Bob, I hear them and I say, well, that worked years ago, but now you'd have to save up for 1 million years to buy a house. Like a down payment on an Orange County house is crazy. And to anyone who's thinking that, I will say there are markets in California that are not so crazy as the one we're sitting in. And there are markets outside of California where if all you can
That's
scrounge
true.
up is $1,000, then look outside of California and build some equity outside and then bring it into the States. Sometimes you have to get creative.
Yeah, when I was in my 20s, I went to Corona, and every Saturday morning for 2 years, I made 10 ridiculous offers and about $3 million worth of property, basically for nothing down. I didn't want to live in Corona at that time, in the 70s, but I was able to make my money in Corona and then come back and buy a very nice house in Villa Park, up in the mountains, up in the hills, 32 years old. But again, I had to go out of the local area where, I couldn't afford to buy, make my money in what Bob Osbrink would call investing in the path of progress, which may be called like Banning or Beaumont, California. And I'm here up right now in Lake Oroville, which is booming right now. It'll probably double in size in the next 5 or 6 years. So just, again, you want to take advantage of that opportunity and locate where you think you're going to be on the path of progress, and you can accelerate your opportunities for advancement financially.
Explain that path. I'll explain that path of progress comment, because I picked that up years and years ago with the Irvine Company. When you watch trends, when Orange County grew, it was pretty clear that things were coming down the 5 freeway from LA and the 405 freeway from LA. That was not, didn't take brain surgery to see that was the movement. That was the path people were taking. That's where the money was going to be spent. That's where the jobs were going to be created. If you're looking at Orange County and you're looking to do some investing there at a level that, like, you could do some of these creative ways, there are still opportunities to get into things zero down. Bob just did it. Then look, there's different paths going on right now. For example, the medical industry is in complete turmoil. So we already know that some of the bigger providers are going to have to step into the healthcare industry to keep it rolling, because it's getting overwhelmed. That's going to continue to be a problem, it appears. Get ahead of that, because hospitals sometimes are in downtown beautiful locations. A lot of times they're not. But they're going to grow. The ancillary services to them, the tenancies, people are still going to need to go in and do things. You've got a complete change of ownerships coming very quickly. I hate to tie it to the COVID-19, but there's a lot of illness in older folks over 60 years old. There's a couple of them on the call right now. Not with illness, but in that age group. Oops, my dog. And unfortunately, that's going to cause some effect in ownerships of properties. Areas like Garden Grove, I was on a call yesterday with the city manager of Garden Grove. There's going to be a lot of movement in that market, and a lot of money is going to want to be in there. There's going to be opportunity there. There's parts of Huntington Beach I can see completely shifting. Areas like Stanton, infill areas. Those are infill areas that are going to change because usages are going to change. So when we say path of progress, it's what's something happening in the economy, in the market, that's driving people to either move or rebuild places. Reuse is going to be huge coming up in the next 10 years. So that's what we meant by that term.
So that may have partially answered Daria's question, which was, I'm interested in investing in multifamily residential properties in the future. What do you recommend I do as a student to be able to reach my goals of attaining rental properties for passive income?
Well, the one thing I made a note of when James put the things out is, first of all, you're doing it right now by being on this call.
Yeah.
That's part, and trust me, that I don't say that lightly. That's really important, Dario. I would start reading everything you can about multifamily. I would start looking into city reports. I'd start looking at where things are moving. If you get yourself into Orange County Business Journal, look at where properties are trading. Look at where the ownerships are, who's trading them. Pick an area that you like. And I tell you what, there's nothing, now you've got Zillow, you've got a lot of ways you can do it on the camera. But if you're sincere, I still think if you get in your car and drive the streets and look at what appeals to you, you start to get a real sense for it. There's still nothing like talking to an owner of a building that looks like it might need to be changed or something happened to it and say, I noticed that your mailbox needs to be painted. And the guy will go, well, wait a minute, you know that? You absolutely, I've been thinking about that. You're demonstrating a knowledge. I noticed that your neighbor, the building next door, the neighbor, that trailer's been parked in front of there for 2 weeks. I mean, is he going to move that thing? You create dialogues with people by doing that, whether it's over the phone or face to face, just by knowing where you're thinking. So I would first think about, okay, if you want to do that, start narrowing down where you might want to look, and then start taking the two levels, the technology level to understand what the market is doing there, and then also just nothing like shoe leather getting on the streets. That still is going to be important.
I might also add that a lot of seniors they own duplexes and triplexes and smaller rental properties, and they have a zero basis. So say they have, we'll just use $300,000 as an example, sale price, and you say, okay, I want to give you $300,000 cash for your building. They'll say, oh my gosh, I don't want the cash because I've got to pay $100,000 now in capital gains for the state of California and for the federal government. So if you look back at them and you say, well, tell you what, I'll give you for $300,000, I'll give you $5,000 down, and I'm going to pay you 8% interest on a note for so many years, so 5 years. They'll say, well, wait a minute, if I sell my property for $300,000, you give me all cash, I only have $200,000 left, and I put it in the bank, I'm going to get 0.5%. I put it in the stock market, I may lose it all. At 8% on $295,000 doesn't sound too bad for a 5-year period. The point is that in 5 years, they'll want to keep that note because they can't get 8% anywhere else. The reality is, now that you owned it, 5 years have gone by, you can refinance that building now. Maybe the interest rate is, of course, much lighter, 4%, and you're off for the races. But there's a lot of people out there, like even myself, somebody with good credit. I had property that I'll sell for nothing down, and I've sold property for nothing down. I've got a large piece of property I'm trying to sell right now, and I can't afford to sell it, to be honest with you. Take the cash. I don't want the cash. I'll take some cash, but I'd rather take back paper than I would cash. So it depends on the motivation of the seller.
Yeah, that's key. You're reminding me of some things that I've been involved in before, where I wanted a property and they didn't want to sell it because they didn't want to. Again, it was a tax situation. Somehow they wanted to keep the family involved with it at some point. But we did exactly that. The owner was willing to carry a note, so I paid on the note. Had an option at the end anyway. It worked out really well for both of us and the family too. So, but yeah, you understanding what the seller's motivations are in the sales process is huge. That's why a lot of times the knocking on the doors, or at least talking to people face to face, is important.
Yeah, you need a game strategy, and that's where Bob and I can be of help to you.
Sure.
If you have a property or you're looking at a certain area, we can be of assistance to you in how to structure your offers.
Yeah. Octavio had a great question. If your major is accounting and finance, is there still an opportunity in terms of internships? Absolutely.
Are you? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. If you're a member of the REA,
Yep.
then our internship program dovetails with the REA, and that's so yeah, absolutely. You could be a history major if you're interested in real estate. Yeah. I've heard a few athletes about real estate over the years too. So I mean, having the degree is one thing, but having the interest, together, it's one thing. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, plenty of people get into real estate without getting the degree in college. It's a huge advantage to have the degree, but lots of people get into it just because it's an amazing field to be in.
Yeah, my degree is a Bachelor of Administration in marketing with a minor in psychology. So
I don't even want to tell you. Mine is English with a minor in art. I had to get the MBA in finance just to recover from that.
I'm a marketing guy.
One of our board members, Cal State Fullerton graduate Tyler Leeson, is making at least 7+ figures a year selling apartment buildings, and we would point some interns over to him. That would be a great place to, if you want to, I could get you an introduction at Marcus and Millichap. But he's a criminal justice major from Cal State Fullerton, and he's selling buildings like hotcakes.
Yeah. Dominic has asked, is it possible to get a head start in the industry as a real estate agent with a real estate license before graduating college?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I mean, like I said, I was playing guitar at night and working full time during the day to be able to start buying stuff. So there's all kinds of ways around. Absolutely. That's a time management issue as opposed to a conflict on anything. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I started my investments when I was 19, and people say, what would you do different? And my reply is, I should have started at 11. So the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be. Yeah. Absolutely.
And the best way to learn something is to do it. So your real estate classes will be a ton easier to pass if you're already involved in an escrow.
That's a great point.
The terms.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. I already owned a couple properties when I got my broker's license in '77, and some of the questions were just, like I know what that's about. So.
Well, let's see. I think we've got one more here. I've been interested in joining a real estate club like New Wealth Advisors Club in Riverside. They apparently educate members in the residential investing and allow you to work with accredited investors one-on-one. The caveat is the membership is $900 a year. Are clubs like this advisable or necessary to start working with investors when you first start off?
Tough question. I don't know that group.
Yeah, Barb and I charge a lot less.
Yeah, I tell you what, send me their information and I'll give you my feedback. Send it to Bob and I. Yeah. I just the way there's a couple buzzwords in there, but I know Bob and I have got the same take on what that is. There might be a better place to spend the $900 would be my that's a very gut reaction. It could be very credible. Not saying anything bad about anything, but I'd love to see who's behind it, see what kind of words they're using. Because what you just said, Bob and I can just see the flags go up.
Well, I'm having the same flag. Bob, your Fullerton email is bosbrink@fullerton.edu. Did I remember that correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And,
or Bob at osbrinkgroup.com, which is my consulting company.
Right. And then Robert, you are rtaylor at rimintl.com.
Exactly.
All right. I'm just giving everyone your email addresses.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay, good. Yeah.
Bob Taylor's going to be spammed with requests to purchase his properties now at NAM. So I hope you're prepared for that. One more question. If we aren't graduating, do you recommend waiting to do Argus, considering it will be online training, making it harder? I would say if you have the time and the capacity to do it now, and you're comfortable with financial analysis, now, like carpe diem, do it now, because life only gets more complicated the farther down. Also, Argus is not necessarily changing the way the class is taught. It's not an online thing that you click through. It's an actual live professor engaging with you just like this in real time with a backup professor who will be dealing with questions. So exactly the same as if you were in the room. There would be a lead teacher at the front, and then you would raise your hand if you needed the backup teacher to come and assist you one-on-one. Same deal. They're just doing it digitally. So it comes with, I think you have access to the software for 6 months. You have 90 days to prep for the test. If this summer is your time to do it, I'd do it. It's one less thing to worry about. Your courses are going to get
harder. That's the exact answer. Lindsay, that's right. And the compelling reason is you get the knowledge, and then you keep building your resume, and you keep momentum by being in the business that way. That will be noticed by somebody. So if you can do it, if you can pull it off, absolutely, sooner the better.
Yeah, 100%. On that note, I know, Bob, we had on our agenda to talk through, I'm losing my voice, to talk through the board a little bit, to let the Real Estate Association know what was going on with the Center for Real Estate Board.
Yeah, we're continuing to grow the board, and I think we mentioned that we've got all the groups we're talking about, BOMA, IREM. We're building the board. We're adding new members. I think we're adding 5 as of the board meeting tomorrow, and all of them have outreaches to help interns get students into positions, to help offer some events, some places they can go. But we're continuing to grow the board. There'll be a cutoff point at some point where we don't want too many.
Right.
It gets very cumbersome. But yeah, we're growing the board to make sure we've got the whole breadth of the industry covered, and also to help place students, and also to help build a war chest to keep building all of our programs. So you know, we look very carefully at the experience before we put anybody on the board.
James, did we have any other agenda items we wanted to hit? I know we're at 5:17.
Yeah, we're doing good with the time. Maybe one question I had from when we were going back and forth, during the COVID-19 situation, how could students take advantage of what's going on with the market to either get started in real estate or like just anything in general with their career? Like, how can they take advantage of these down times?
Well, I think we talked about it a little bit. It's that find the people that feel like they've got a future. Try and team up, partner with, hang around. Really use this time to gain knowledge on what's happening, because I've seen it, and I've been on the good side of it, and I've been, oh my God, why didn't I think of that side of it? Things are going to change very quickly, particularly in the way technology integrates with real estate and the ownerships, as well as the brokerage and the property management. So start looking at that, continue to look at that. Retail is going to completely restructure. Office leasing is going to be a very unusual dynamic. I don't quite know yet, and I've talked to a lot of people that own a lot of properties. Not quite sure how that's all going to sort out. WeWorks is probably dead. So there's all kinds of circumstances going on. It's about all the changing. I'm not sure. I don't want to say it's business as usual, because it's not. It's really not. But if to give advice to students, you just got to keep gaining knowledge, and try and study as much as you possibly can, and compare it to what's gone on. And that's one of the things we're able to give, is a comparison of what happened in the last time, because buildings, and they had hearing about all this. Well, there's an opportunity. Sad. I'm not saying it's a joyful thing, but if people can't afford their rent, and the intern program is meant to place people in the industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be a non-paid or a lowly paid intern, as it suggests. It's creating opportunities for all students to get into the real estate business. Does that help clarify it? Yeah.
I think so. I think that if I missed anyone's question, if you want to just go ahead and paste it back into the chat. It was moving pretty fast there for a second. If I overlooked you, I didn't mean to. But these were really great questions. My question to the group is there anything the Center for Real Estate is not doing currently that would be helpful to students? Do you in your seats have any ideas for programs that we could pick up, or events or opportunities that would be helpful to you with what's on your plate?
Great question. Okay.
Do you want them to chat that in or send you guys an email?
You can chat it in. If they think about it later, send an email.
Yeah, send it.
Either way.
Yeah, because we're I don't know, when are you going to have your next discussion? Are you going to do this again next Thursday?
It'd be
James?
great. Maybe we can do another type of panel meeting, maybe with the board members from
Sure.
Center for Real Estate. So we can definitely talk about that. So yeah, let's plan for another meeting on Thursday. I'm not
Okay.
too sure who's going to be there, but everyone look out for that in an email. And then while people might put in some things in the chat, let me just go over some news because I was gone for a while from technical difficulties, but now
You're
I'm
back
back.
now, man. You're back now.
REA has a really big announcement to make, and it's towards the leadership for next year. So typically we have presidents going for a full length of the year, so 2 semesters. Next coming year, we had a very interesting situation where 2 candidates were like so equal and just outstanding candidates for me to have this problem over. Me and my board decided to make the unique decision on having 2 separate presidents, one for each semester. And so your first in, I think it's fall 2020, your president for REA will be Evelyn Aguirre, and I think she's even on this chat. There she is.
She is.
Evelyn's been part of the board for, I think, a
Congratulations.
full year now, and she's been a huge help. And then, so under her, we'll have the vice president, George Baba. I think George is even on here too. There he is. So while Evelyn is going through the presidency, George will be under her learning as much as he can. And that is because in spring semester, George will take over as president of REA. So you have, when I leave, you guys are in great hands with 2 of the best people I know.
And I would like to add, and I'm not sure if this is official yet, but I believe, and maybe I'm delegating here, but I believe that a young ex-president of REA is going to take on the task of creating a real estate association alumni group. Would that be accurate?
Who put the idea in your head?
I don't know. I'm just thinking. I'm just saying. I don't. You know, it's up to you, obviously. But let me know when you want to start.
Yeah. We'll chat about that for sure.
It's a great idea. We'll discuss it. Yeah, because that's
a good idea. Good idea to add, Mr. Osbrink.
Yeah, absolutely. came from Jiminy Cricket sitting on the other part of the call here. But I think it is a good idea because it keeps us linked. Keeps us linked together. No pun intended. But yeah.
Yes. Well, congratulations to both.
Congratulations to both of you.
That's very exciting.
In great hands, and you know, we'll have a couple more calls before this is all done. But James, I just personally want to thank you on behalf of the center for absolutely doing what we asked originally when we first met, is integrating REA with the Center for Real Estate and helping it all grow. And you've been a huge part of that, and really appreciate it. Thanks,
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's some really great momentum, and I'm excited for everyone. So.
We ain't done yet, kids.
We ain't done, but I think this meeting is about to conclude now.
Very well said.
So if you guys have any more questions, you know, feel free to contact them via email. I'm sure they'll be glad to help. If you have any questions on the REA side, just email us, sgmhrea@gmail.com. I just want to thank you all, everyone that came to this meeting to attend, the speakers, Linsey, Bob Osbrink, and Bob Taylor. Thank you so much for doing this. I think this was even better than the last one, even though Bob Taylor, your meeting was great too.
It's not like we're competitive at all, but
I'm sure I'll hear more about that.
But yeah, just thank you to everyone, and I hope the rest of your day is great. So thank you.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Be safe.
Later.
Bye. Be well.